Okay, so it's me again, you saw the title, and I'm playing Cuphead today, but there's actually more to it. There's a certain game that I want to play for the channel, but in order to get to that game, I feel like there's a sort of progression. So, starting from this video here, I'll be playing some games that will lead up to the game that I have in mind. The games might seem sort of random, but once I finally get to the game I'm talking about, I hope it'll make sense. Now back to Cuphead, I'll just let this be known. I've beaten this game way before I ever planned to make this video. Back in 2017, this was just the type of game that I couldn't help but be interested in. But my interest in this game started way before 2017. In fact, it started back in 2014 when I first saw the original trailer for this game. It didn't show much of anything, but even to this day, I still remember that scene of some sort of devil bat chasing Cuphead. I saw this and was confused at what I was looking at. This looks straight out of an old school cartoon. I've seen plenty of games with good graphics, 2D and 3D, but this was something special. I've always been one for gameplay over graphics, but when the game looked this good, I just had to play it. Not to mention, before this, I'd never heard of Studio MBHR, but hearing that they were an indie studio and that Cuphead was their first game, alright, they got me, I have to play this game. But then it kind of fell out of my radar. I don't know whether it was me, or maybe there really wasn't much info being released about this game, but I didn't hear or see anything about Cuphead up until 2017 when it was released. And then I thought to myself, oh yeah, Cuphead, I should probably play that. I have to say it though, I could not imagine making a game like this, especially for your first one as an indie developer. Everything in this game, from the animations to the backgrounds, were all hand-drawn on paper. The backgrounds were even watercolored, like, they did not have to do that. I'm no animator, and I suck at drawing, but I think everyone in the world knows how hard and time-consuming animation is, and the whole game looks like this too. Okay, look, there's always that one guy who would try to downplay it all. I know you've seen those people in the comments before, but I don't care what you think, animating for a game like this is brutal. Just remember, this is Studio MBHR's first game, and they said go big or go home. And when the game finally released, it was good. I thought it was good, and apparently tons of people thought the same too. But enough about the visuals of Cuphead, because although they look good, I bought the game without even knowing what I was getting myself into simply because of the looks. Not my best decision, and it seriously could have backfired. The first thing I was expecting was a run-and-gun shooter. Like I said, the only trailer I saw for this game before buying it in 2017 was the very first one, and I saw that Cuphead was shooting, so that's what I thought. While I wasn't wrong, this game is much more boss-focused rather than the run-and-gunning I was expecting. But you know, I should probably explain that all later because we have a quick little story to cover. Okay, there's two brothers, Cuphead and Mugman, who live under Elder Kettle. They're just goofing off until they run into the Devil's Casino. They gamble, get on a hot streak, and make a deal with the devil, so you know they lost. Since these two don't want to lose their souls, they now become the debt collectors for the devil. There's a huge list of people who owe the devil as well, and there we go. 3 different areas packed with running guns, bosses, and we gotta beat them all. So you can play as Cuphead or Mugman, or if you have a friend, you can do co-op. I like to play these games dolo, so I'll be going in as Cuphead. Also, I have no one to play with. I've said it already, but I'll say it again, I've already beaten this game before. In fact, I've 200%ed it, meaning I got all P ranks and S ranks on every boss. For me, this will be just a little casual run of the game. Elder Kettle gives us the power to use our fingers as a gun, and we go into the infamous tutorial section. Cuphead has some basic movement options like jumping and crouching, but let's not forget the dreaded air dash, the hardest mechanic in the game. It's seriously a hard ability to use, look how I'm stuck here. With the X button or square button, you can shoot your gun, and with the right bumper, you can lock yourself in place to shoot in all 8 directions. You can still shoot in all 8 directions regardless of holding down the right bumper, but you'll be shifting around all over the place if you do. Personally, I'm really bad with the default control scheme. I can shoot and jump at the same time, but mixing in air dashes is a bit much. So to fix this, I mapped the shoot button to the right trigger and the lock button to the left trigger. It might sound strange, but I think it's very comfortable since I can keep shooting without thinking about pressing extra buttons. Next up, you can parry. So when you see pink objects, you can parry them by pressing jump again while midair. It also gives you an extra card down there for your EX move, which is your weapon super. There's gold coins in some levels, which you can use to purchase more items in the shop, and that's the tutorial. So just a heads up, I will be making a little tier list for every weapon and charm at the end, just so you guys can know my opinions about everything. This tier list is purely based off of how I feel about them from experience. It is 100% biased and not objective at all, so whether you agree or not is not my problem. Remember, this is just my opinion and also probably a result of my playstyle. To me, Cuphead is a game about skill and finesse, and in order to get S ranks on every boss, and even P ranks, which I'll explain later, you need that finesse. Now, I'm not saying that I don't have any finesse, I still ended up getting S ranks on every boss, so I have a little bit, but my playstyle is ugly. Also, in my other videos, I usually have little live parts to show bits of my live commentary. This time, I was sick while getting footage, so I didn't talk much. I'm actually still a little sick recording this audio, but that's besides the point. Alright, so on these little hub worlds, or whatever you want to call them, there's people you can talk to on the map who can provide you with some coins, hints, or they're just there to talk to. With those coins, you can go into Pork Rind's Emporium, which is the shop where you can buy those extra charms and weapons. But just make sure to get all those coins in the overworld and in those running guns. The Pea Shooter is a fine enough weapon for most, if not all scenarios, but the game gives you 6 different weapons to use, and I would highly highly recommend checking them all out. I promise there's a weapon for every scenario. You can select up to 2 weapons to use per level, and trust me, during a boss fight, you'll want to switch things up. All of these bosses have multiple phases, and these guys are gonna fight like, fight like they owe the devil. You're gonna think you figured out how to beat a boss after a few tries, up until you get to that next phase where everything is different. You have to know what to dodge, when to dodge, keeping track of everything on screen. Trust me, this game is hard, and you will die a lot only to be shown just how close you were to beating that level. And once you see that end screen that shows you were right there, that automatically means to run it back. It's satisfying when you do beat it, but you're gonna have to earn it. This game really brings out that urge, that need to keep retrying over and over until you finally beat that one boss or that one level. See, the deaths will pile up and there's no doubt about it, but every death always felt like my fault, except for this pissed me off. The bosses always telegraph their attacks, even if it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on, but as you improve and get better, those things on screen begin to slow down and you can read them easier. It doesn't make it any less hard to dodge them, but at least you can see it coming. And as you play longer, you'll get better at dodging because this game has extremely good controls. I feel like Cuphead has the right amount of weight to him. He doesn't feel too light or too sluggish, and he goes exactly where you want him to go. Every time you mess up, like running into an enemy or falling off, it never felt like it's because Cuphead did something you didn't want him to do. Controls are a huge part of a game for me because trying to do one thing but your character doing another is never a good feeling. This also extends to the spaceship shooter sections of the game. They're called the plane sections, but they really are just spaceship shooters. Some of these sections can turn into a straight up bullet hell, but take your time, make no wasted movements, and you'll be solid. Of course, you can have excellent controls, but you're gonna need a good weapon to go along with them. So I really like the pea shooter because of how satisfying it is to use, but I wouldn't say that it's the best weapon for every situation. The weapon that is good for every situation is the roundabout. This thing is so good, I honestly think it's the best weapon in the game. This weapon does good damage, has great range, and because the bullets have this looping effect, you don't have to look at the boss at all. I could face the complete opposite direction of the boss to focus on dodging while still doing damage. And anytime the boss looked like they were standing still, I got in their face and used the spread shot. This weapon just shredded any boss in sight. It didn't work on every boss, but when it worked, nothing felt better. There were other weapons like the chaser, charge shot, and lobber, but the roundabout and the spread shot were my go-tos. I just felt like that combination could do it all. Technically, there are 2 more weapons I'm not talking about, and they're for the plane sections, the minigun and these bombs. These are the only 2 weapons you can use as the plane, and I think they're solid. There's also not much to compare them to. The minigun does good damage, has good range, and has a great EX. The bombs do more damage, are best used if the boss is at a weird angle, and the EX is not so great. That's all I can really say there. Eventually, by going into these mausoleums and pairing all these ghosts, the legendary missiles will appear to give you super abilities. There's 3 of them in the game, and they're all good. You can use these supers by maxing out your EX meter with 5 cards. You can either unleash a giant beam from Cuphead, turn invincible for a short period, or summon this giant spirit version of Cuphead to go crazy. My personal favorite is the second one, the one that turns you invincible. It's how I got my S ranks. Every time I was about to get hit, I would pop it, go right up to the boss's face, and shoot him up with a spread shot. That's what I meant by my playstyle not having much finesse. That strategy was key for dodging attacks and dealing massive amounts of damage. It looked ugly, but it worked. The giant beam super was good for dealing damage as well, but I was so scared of getting hit right after performing it, I quickly put this one away. The third one, the giant spirit of Cuphead, is my least favorite. You can control it by holding down the lock button and moving it towards the boss. It will do a lot of damage, but I'm just not the kind of person who sacrificed my movement for all that damage. Especially when I was going for those S ranks, I wasn't using these supers because of their damage. I felt confident that I could do that on my own. I was using these supers as a get out of jail card for when I was about to get hit. This also applied to the super for plane sections. You only get 1 super for these sections, but it's really good. You turn into a giant bomb and ram into the boss for a lot of damage. In my case, I used it in a defensive way, where if I didn't want to get hit, I would pop my super and use those invincibility frames to reposition. From the shop, you can also get those charms or skills for Cuphead. They range from really good to... well, I'm not sure what to use this thing for. Since the very beginning of the game, the smoke bomb was definitely the best charm early and late game. You can dash through objects without taking damage, and that alone can completely trivialize some of these bosses, especially for the mini bosses in the King Dice fight. Some of those look like they would be a pain to deal with if I had to dodge them normally, but now I can just completely avoid that. One thing you'll have to get used to is parrying with the new dash. It's easier to parry where you can see your character reach the target, but with the smoke bomb, you don't see yourself, and it can be a bit hard. At some point, I thought the distance you travel with the smoke bomb was shorter, but it's the same. Without a doubt, it's the best charm in the game and damn near essential for trying to go for those P ranks. It's so good that when you go down the list of charms, nothing really compares. You have things like the extra life upgrades, which increase your health at the cost of less damage, which can be good, or the coffee upgrade, which continuously increases your super meter and is my personal go-to for the plane sections. But then you get to the pea sugar and the whetstone, and let me tell you, pea sugar is supposed to be an automatic parry, and it was helpful when I was bad at parrying. The thing is, it only parries the first object, so you still have to learn how to parry regardless, and bringing this to something like the King Dice fight makes it practically useless now. And why would you ever use the whetstone? So, like I said before, the main thing for this game are the boss fights, and a very small portion are for the run and gun sections. While I thought they were fun, they just weren't nearly as fun as the bosses, and sometimes I felt like the run and guns gave me more trouble, and I'm being completely serious. The chaser was my weapon of choice when it came to these. It homed in on all the enemies, so I didn't have to worry about them while I focused on avoiding things as much as I could. But I gotta keep it real, Perilous Piers and Funhouse Frazzle really made me feel like I was ass at this game. Perilous Piers because of this ending section with all these things being thrown at you. Chaser's bullets move really slow, so I had to manually dodge these things, but that's where my lack of finesse kicked in. I had a really hard time here. I, for some reason, also had a really bad time with these crabs. It shouldn't be hard, but I was just really bad over here and I don't know why. But let me get to Funhouse Frazzle. Remember, I beat this game a long time ago, so I won't have any footage. However, I remember clearly struggling here with the parrying to change the gravity around. I already hate it when games invert the gravity in any way, but to dodge certain attacks or to progress, you have to use it. In the footage I recorded, I tried my best to stay on the bottom the entire time. I would change the gravity if I had to, but yeah, this was definitely not my favorite. Now, I've mentioned P ranks here and there, and I think it's about time I explain what those are as well as S ranks. P ranks are only achievable during run and gun sections, the P standing for pacifist. Yeah, beating the run and gun without the gun. You either need the smoke bomb, the extra life charms, or the invincibility super to do this. Just for the video, I decided to try and get a P rank on the very first run and gun, and this is hard. I got all those P ranks back in 2017, so now I'm wondering, how did I get through Perilous Piers and Funhouse Frazzle back then? When you get all the P ranks, there's a turtle you can talk to unlock the black and white filter. This is pretty cool though, so I think it was worth it. Would I consider fighting a boss with this filter? No. But using it in a run and gun? Yeah, sure. For S ranks, you need to beat the base game first, and then you can unlock the expert option for every boss. The bosses now have more HP, throw a ton more at you, and I feel like some of the bosses just move faster. To get an S rank, you'll need to beat these versions of the bosses without taking a single hit or at least having 3 HP, getting 3 parries, and using 6 EXs. On top of everything I just said, I found out that if you take too long during a boss fight, you won't get the S rank either, so there's also a time limit. Even using certain charms or weapons don't give you an S rank. I tried using the heart charms to give myself some extra leeway, but I think the game prevents you from getting an S rank if you use one of those charms. What you've essentially done is lower your attack on purpose without any of the benefits and erased any chance of getting that S rank. Wait, that's not supposed to happen. Yeah, I didn't plan for this to happen. Okay, so anyways, let me just get back to the script. The same thing happens with the Chaser where you can't get an S rank with it. Rumor Honeybottoms is a real tough boss to deal with. The last section giving me some problems because I couldn't find a good way to aim at her, so I brought along the Chaser. Although I was able to beat the boss, I still didn't get the S rank. Okay, what the hell. Besides that, me going for those S ranks is the main reason why I don't have trouble dealing with these bosses anymore. When you've dealt with them in expert mode, you've been through the worst of it. In fact, while trying to go for those S ranks, I would find beating the boss quite easy, but I would end up not using all my EXs for some reason, or not reaching the parry requirements. Hildeberg, Sally Stage Plague, Grim Matchstick, and Rumor Honeybottoms being the absolute worst when it came to parrying. But you know, when I finally got all those S ranks, it felt good. It felt like I really improved as a player and that I truly completed the game. So how about we get to the actual ending of the game, because S ranks are something no player should be worrying about before they even get to the devil. Okay, you've gone through all 3 areas, got all the items you need, and it's time to step into hell. Before you can even challenge the devil, you've got to get through King Dice, which is a complete gauntlet of bosses. He presents the dice, and you gotta parry the number of spaces you'll move on this board. There's the safe spaces where you don't fight anyone, and the return to start space. Try to avoid that one. On the board, some of those spaces have hearts, meaning you'll gain an extra heart for the entire boss fight. And yes, it's extra health without any decrease in your attack, unlike with the charm. These are all mini bosses, which aren't too hard on their own, but after you fight a lot of them, the pressure can pile up, and it just takes one simple mistake for you to get into your own head. Especially since after you get to that last space on the board, you begin to fight King Dice. Sometimes you'll get hit and start to think, now I have to fight King Dice with only 2 hearts, and trust me, if you're bad at parrying, you're going to need all those hearts. King Dice only has 1 move, and is sending a bunch of cards at you. The only way to dodge them is to parry those pink ones. Take it from someone who was horrible at parrying, auto parry isn't gonna save you here. You still have to manually parry each one, even the same one multiple times to not get hit. But if you're good at parrying, or if you're willing to face tank all those cards, King Dice is no problem. Next up, the Devil, the final boss. He saw that Cuphead and Mugman brought all his contracts and presents them with the option to join him. And you can. I actually did for the first time ever, which results in the bad ending where you get these 2 looking like crackheads. The title screen's music is also all reversed, which I thought was a bug. I did not know it was intentional. Come on, you can only get the good ending by doing this the right way. The fight against the devil isn't actually the hardest boss in the game. At least I didn't think so. It honestly felt balanced, which is weird to say for a final boss. It didn't feel too hard, didn't feel too easy, it was a fun boss fight. Rarely do I ever consider the final boss in a game to be a fun fight, but this is actually my favorite boss fight. Surprisingly, my weapons of choice here and for the S rank were the pea shooter and the spread shot. That one is isn't surprising. It just felt so good to use the pea shooter against this guy, and I couldn't tell you why. The pea shooter is what I use for the first phase, then he does this and goes deeper into hell for the second phase. Down here, you're right next to this guy, so the spread shot is the best thing to use, and eventually, with enough damage, the devil starts crying like a big baby, and it just takes a couple more shots before you've beaten him. After beating the devil, Cuphead and Mugman burn all the contracts to free everyone from the devil's debt, and they promise to not get into trouble again. Well, until they did. But that's a story for later in the video. This game is short and sweet, barely any story, fully gameplay focused, and the gameplay is damn good. This game deserves all the praise that it gets, and I can't really find too much wrong about it. I mean, I had my issues with Funhouse Frazzle, but I think that's more of a me thing. But come on, look at the game, look at the passion that was put into it. What am I even looking at in the background? I don't even know what that is, but that's passion. Even the soundtrack is top notch. Every song in this game is just great. I've been using it the entire video. Some of the songs might get drowned out during all the boss fights and stuff, but they're all just so good. My favorites definitely being the Dice House, Junkyard Jive, and you can't forget Railroad Wrath. There's so much more I'm leaving out, but come on, I can't say half of the soundtrack is my favorite now, can I? Cuphead is a great game, simple as that. But there's also DLC. For full transparency, as of writing the script, I have not played the DLC. This whole time I've been talking about the base game, and I'm curious about what they've added. The new bosses, songs, weapons, and charms, pretty much everything. The base game was really good, so the DLC has a lot to live up to. But before I get into the DLC, I will now give my personal tier list of every weapon and charm in the game. Remember, this is a pre-DLC list, so I'm curious to see what I might change after I've played it. The first weapon I gotta go over is the pea shooter, which I'll be giving an A tier. This is completely my opinion, but this weapon is just so satisfying to use, and I like how it looks. That's honestly the only reason it's up here. It doesn't do the most damage, but I really do like how simple it is. It just shoots. Yeah, that's it. The EX is solid as well, just a giant shot that does good damage. There are other weapons that are much more effective than the pea shooter, but none of them give me the same satisfaction. I also have a heavy bias because the first time I beat the devil, I used the pea shooter. For the spread shot, that's sitting at a comfortable A tier. The spread shot is such a great weapon for those bosses where you can get close and beam them. As a solo weapon, it's not so great, but it shines as possibly the best secondary in the game. And for bosses like the Root Pack and Peppy the Clown, I mean, this speaks for itself. For its EX, it shoots 8 spikes in 8 different directions from where Cuphead is standing. Improper use of this EX makes it seem like the worst EX, and to be fair, it can be, depending on the boss. But when you find the right time to use it, it definitely packs a punch. There's almost nothing more satisfying in this game than to hit all 8 of them on a boss. You won't get the opportunity often, but for bosses like Goopy Legrand, Peppy the Clown, and Werner Werman, it's super satisfying. Next up is the Chaser, going into C tier. For new players, this weapon will be your best friend if you just want to focus on dodging and doing damage while doing so. It's for that reason why I prefer to use it during running guns. Now for bosses, the problem with this weapon is that as you get better, you start to gravitate towards weapons that do more damage. The EX ability here also tanks its grade by a lot because it creates a little shield that protects you from enemies. Not attacks, enemies. Yeah, it's damn near useless in most situations because you'll most likely be getting hit by attacks from the boss, and it's not even that good in running guns. I almost put this weapon in D tier because I thought you couldn't use it to get S ranks, but I guess I was wrong, so C tier it is. Okay, the Lobber is going into the A tier for me. Originally, I was gonna put it in the B tier, but I really started to warm up to this thing. Before, I used this weapon only for Grim Matchstick, and honestly, it felt like this weapon was made for that fight. But funnily enough, getting footage for the Lobber made me really like it. The bullets have a little bouncing effect, you know, which is cool, but that damage is excellent, and that's the best part about this weapon. On to the Charge Shot, the weapon that I have a love-hate relationship with, and a weapon that I'm putting into the B tier. This is a high-skill weapon, and you're only gonna get the most value out of it if you land those charge shots. It's the only weapon in the game that doesn't have a rapid fire, meaning it takes a lot of skill and finesse to use properly. This can either be a great weapon, or the worst weapon in the game depending on how good you are. The EX ability is a giant explosion right in front of where Cuphead is standing. It's more like a melee attack and it does do a lot of damage, but I'm just not the biggest fan of it. Regardless of the EX, it's still a very good weapon and always a solid choice. If you're good aiming, that is. Now for the one we've all been waiting for, the only S tier weapon in the game, the Roundabout. It's undoubtedly the best weapon in the game. There's a reason why during my S rank runs, this was my most used weapon. I've already mentioned before the looping effect of the bullets, but there's also another reason why it's so good. That looping effect can act as a way to clear out any random enemies on screen. It's the best offense and the best defense all packed into one. The EX was always hard for me to use because I just suck, but this could be the only weapon in the game without an EX and it would still be S tier for me. With all the weapons now ranked, let's get to the charms. There's not much to say, but I might as well rank them. Starting off with the Heart Charm, that's actually a B tier for me. It gives you 1 extra heart and it slightly lowers your attack. It's okay for running gun sections, and that extra heart can come in clutch for a hard boss. After I found out you can S rank with this charm equipped, it automatically definitely made it better for me on my list. It's a solid charm, and the damage drop-off isn't even bad. It's barely noticeable. The smoke bomb is next, and it's an easy S tier. It's a dash that allows you to go through attacks, enemies, and make some bosses complete jokes. I will say it's pretty useless during playing sections since you can't really dash. It's more of a smoke shrink, but it's the best charm without a doubt and a great defensive item. Pea sugar, D tier. Yeah, I mean, okay, the reason this charm is D tier is because it only parries the first pink object automatically, so you're gonna have to parry manually anyways. I used to be horrible at parrying, so I would use this thing as a crutch, but so many times I would accidentally parry something that I didn't want to, and this was especially bad during Phantom Express. And I don't need to bring up King Dice again. Now for the coffee, and this is a good B tier charm. Your super meter now fills up on its own in addition to what you're doing as well. The reason this is in the B tier is because this was really good for plane sections. As long as you're hitting the boss, you can get your EXs really fast. For regular bosses, I'd still rather have the smoke bomb, but this is a solid choice. Okay, next up, Twin Hearts is also going into the B tier. You now have 5 hearts instead of 3, and it lowers your attack even more than with the heart charm. I would say the damage drop-off starts to become noticeable at this point. So it's better than the heart charm for running guns due to the extra heart, but worse for bosses because of the damage. I can't really put one above the other in this situation, so I'd say they're even. Last up, the Whetstone. This is going confidently in the F tier. I have no clue how to use this thing, and I don't know what it could possibly be good for. So your first parry is now an axe attack, meaning you can parry an enemy to do damage. I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather not do that and keep my distance. I tried going through a running gun with it, but this is the most useless thing you could bring to one. The only possible way I can see this thing being useful is during a plane section where you get in the boss's face and spam the Whetstone while shooting at the same time. That seems like solid DPS, but how small is the range of this thing? I don't know. F tier for me, and that's all the weapons and charms ranked off of my experience. With the base game all out of the way as well as my personal tier list, let's see what the DLC has in store for me. The delicious last course.
It's the delicious last course. Oh, the delicious last course.
I'm sure you've noticed the title screen change and how the music is different, but hey man, I just want to say the new music in the DLC is nice. No joke, I like every new song that was added. Okay, I know I'm jumping the gun a bit, so let's get back to the game. There's this guy who tells us that Miss Chalice has an important message for us, and by talking to him, he'll take us to aisle 4. Once we're over there, Miss Chalice appears to give Mugman a cookie to eat. By eating this cookie, Mugman now turns into a spirit, and Miss Chalice takes a physical form. First off, that's pretty cool. Second off, you just finessed the Mugman. She explains that she's been struggling to find a way to get out of the astral plane, but with the help of Chef Saltbaker, he was able to make a cookie that could help. The effects of the cookie are temporary, but Chef Saltbaker has a new recipe for a Wonder Tart that could make it so Miss Chalice can be brought back for good. He needs help getting those ingredients though, and the people holding those ingredients sure are stingy. Sounds like we got some bosses to beat. We also now get access to Miss Chalice as a character by changing our charm to the Astral Cookie. At first, I was a bit skeptical. Was I really gonna trade off Smoke Bomb just to play a new character? It also didn't help that Miss Chalice was a bit weird for me to get used to. Let me explain. So Miss Chalice has a double jump. Cuphead doesn't have a double jump because you would press the jump button again to parry something. Instead of that, she has a parry dash, so she'll just dash towards something to parry it. But then I noticed two things. She has an invincible dodge roll. Let me repeat, an invincible dodge roll. She also has one extra heart. No matter how weird she felt to me, I cannot deny the positives. Alright, so aisle 4. The first thing I did before fighting any bosses was talk to the people here. I managed to snag some coins and go into the shop to check out the new items. From what I could tell, all the items here looked like pretty solid picks. This heart ring definitely looked good, but I said to myself that I beat the base game with Cuphead, so it was only right I beat the DLC with Miss Chalice. The charms in the shop were definitely a no for now, especially this thing. I decided on getting the crack shot as my first weapon here, and the next thing on my list was to go straight to the bosses. The whole time I was in aisle 4, I made sure to only use new weapons and new charms. Well, more like only using the new weapons and Miss Chalice. But let me tell you something, me picking crack shot as my first weapon was the best decision I could have made. Crack shot is unbelievably good. It's a homing weapon that does good damage, not chaser damage. I'll be honest, this weapon is good for every boss in the game. It's that good. Good weapon or not though, you're still gonna need to be good enough to use it. Trying out Miss Chalice for the first time had me so confused. It was like all the movement and practice I did for Cuphead was suddenly all gone. It looked like this was my first time playing the game. This could also be a result of me facing a new boss that I didn't learn the patterns for, but I feel like I looked bad out there. Things got so bad, I went back to playing as Cuphead. But because I was just playing as Miss Chalice, I was starting to try and double jump and dash into things as Cuphead. So now I was bad at using Miss Chalice because I wasn't used to her controls, and I was now bad at using Cuphead because I was confusing the new mechanics with the old ones. Once you get her controls down, she is very good. Better than Cuphead with Smoke Dash. Yeah, I said it. Miss Chalice also has new super arts. I didn't notice this until later on because I constantly had the second super art active from when I played as Cuphead. I just thought this extra heart shield thing was her only super. She has her own version of the beam attack, the extra heart shield I was just talking about, and a super where she just launches a bunch of stuff at the enemy. Her version of the beam attack was questionable. Instead of going horizontally, it went vertically, which made it sort of hard to use. All the bosses in the DLC can be hit by this super and it's best used here, but in the the base game, I'm sorry, no. The second one is the best, hands down. I rarely swapped off this thing. In fact, I only have footage of the other supers after I beat the DLC. It allows you to take an extra hit, and since Miss Chalice has 4 hearts already, that gives you 5 hearts now. If you have a maxed out EX meter and try to use it while already having the shield, you just use the EX of the weapon you're currently using. It doesn't stack. However, you can get hit, pop another super right there, and prevent yourself from taking damage twice in a row. I think you know which super I used for S ranking out 4. The last super is a giant barrage of random ghostly items thrown at the enemy horizontally. After the attack is done, there's a pink spear you can parry right after, like the pink heart for Cuphead's third super. This thing does a lot of damage, and it's pretty easy to hit. Using it practically guarantees that the screen will be clear of any enemies. This is really just Cuphead's beam super, but on some performance enhancing drugs. Okay, how about we talk about the rest of aisle 4, because one of the first things I noticed was that there weren't any running guns. You know, there's still a lot of stuff in the shop to buy, and I kinda need those running guns for coins. I found one extra coin in the overworld, and then came across the King's Leap. This is where you'll be doing multiple trials that challenge your parrying skills. Your reward for doing so are coins. These were really creative and fun to do. Except for this guy. This fight took so long because he kept doing this for half of the fight, and anytime I got too greedy, I took a hit because of it. Damn, that was humbling. You know, I should really talk about the new bosses, and you know what? I'm going to. These bosses are great. They're all challenging, but they're also a lot of fun. I loved the fight against the Moonshine Mob. The song here, Bootleg Boogie, is just great, and this was my first boss here. It definitely left an impression. Also, the fake knockout thing, that would have got me if I didn't have extra health to spare. I'll give it to you though, that was sneaky. I do feel bad for those who actually died because of it. The bosses here feel much more fast-paced, more chaotic, and I really like them. From Glumstone the Giant to Mortimer Freeze, it's a great time. Are they more challenging than the base game bosses? I'd say no, but are they just as fun? I'd say yes. The only boss I really had a problem with were the Howling Aces. Now this one seemed completely normal at first, until the camera started switching up on me and messing with my controls. I was confused by this R control thing on the death screen and played around with it, but that was a huge mistake because I was unintentionally sabotaging myself. R control A is for Cuphead relative controls, and R control B is for screen relative controls. I made sure to put on R control B and never touch it again. Glad the crack shot's a thing. I don't think I was beating that boss without it. I'm not sure if it's just me, but I also feel like the bosses are much more animated than before, and the animation looks so smooth. Sometimes you might get a little distracted looking at everything going on, but I would still say these are all fun fights. I'll also take this time to talk about the plane sections for Miss Chalice, since she also has different attacks. The minigun is now replaced by the triple darts from Bloons. If you know, you know. Slower fire rate than the minigun, but a wider spread, so it balances out. The bombs have been replaced by mini bombs that drop way faster than Cuphead's. They do solid damage, and they're good for that CQC. Of course, getting that close to the boss isn't something I do often, but for the bosses where I have to, this is great. The EX for the triple darts are 2 homing magnets, which are okay. Not bad at all, just okay. What is bad is the bomb EX. It's Cuphead's minigun EX, except it shoots downward. I can see the potential against Esther Winchester, kinda, but for any of the bosses in the base game, not really. Her plane super is the same as Cuphead's, except just a little harder to control. With Cuphead's, I feel like I could dodge as the bomb a little bit. Miss Chalice's feels like once you pop it, you gotta commit. So I know I've neglected to talk about those other charms and weapons, but that's because I didn't really use them. The only charm I used was the Astral Cookie, and Crackshot is leagues above anything else. Anyways, the DLC brought 3 new weapons and 3 new charms. The weapons being the Crackshot, Converge, and Twist Up. The new charms are the Astral Cookie, the Heart Ring, and this Cursed Relic. While I did use all of these weapons for Aisle 4, Crackshot was the main one. I tried to use Converge and Twist Up, and they seemed fine, for maybe 1 or 2 situations, but for the most part, they went untouched. That's just me being honest. I'll give my full opinions about the charms and weapons at the very end. Once you've collected all the ingredients that Chef Saltbaker needs, it's time to get back to him to try and get that Wonder Tart made. Except he never told us about the secret ingredients, which is a living soul. He took the soul of Cuphead, and he doesn't plan to give us that Wonder Tart, but to make it for himself and to gain control of the astral plane. As you can see, that's our final boss right there. Chef Saltbaker is one hard boss fight. In fact, I found him to be the hardest boss fight in the game. I thought Rumor Honey Bombs and Wally Warbles were bad. This guy throws so much at you, it's crazy. Like, the devil is a complete fraud compared to this guy. The first phase has sugar cubes flying around, lemon slices, strawberries flying around. I really appreciate the chef thing going on here. But once you get past that first phase, things get progressively easier. The second phase still throws a lot at you, but not as much, and it's a lot easier to dodge. The third phase is the easiest, and please do not let this happen to you on the fourth phase. I think I still prefer the Devil's Fight more than this one because I felt like after the first phase of Chef Saltbaker, I didn't find the second and third phase as enjoyable as the first and last ones. That's not to say that they aren't enjoyable, but I just found the Devil's Fight as a whole more fun for me. That's just my honest opinion. But like I said, it's still a tough fight, and that last phase can be hard to deal with since Chef Saltbaker's heart is constantly moving. Just remember to keep parrying him, get those EXs, dodge him, aim well, and it'll be a satisfying end to the fight. We beat him, and his whole bakery comes crashing down. But how did his body get put back together? I thought I saw it in the background. You know, it's fine. We've been fooled, and with the bakery now destroyed, any hope of Miss Chalice coming back is gone. But you know, Miss Chalice says that if a soul has to be sacrificed for her to come back, It just isn't worth it. She won't stop searching for a way to come back though, and hey, if we ever need some help, she's just one cookie bite away. Well, that would be the ending, but it's not over yet because we get a little epilogue / credit scene, and this is really nice to watch. It's Chef Saltbaker being arrested and then doing community service for his crimes. It's cool to see him slowly become happy and hopefully reformed, eventually working his way back to building his bakery once again. That's a good ending to the DLC, but I did promise a little tier list. So just to let you know, I did go ahead and S-rank all the new DLC bosses. However, S-ranking them didn't really change my opinion on anything I'm about to say about these weapons and charms. I'll go over the weapons first, and Crackshot is easily S tier and the best weapon in the game. Imagine the Chaser, but it does more damage and has an EX that actually does something. I've said it before and I'll say it again, this weapon is good for every boss in the game. It makes me realize how much of an easier time I would have had if I played the DLC, got this weapon, and then tried to S-rank everything. Phantom Express's final phase, Rumor Honeybottom's final phase, Sally Stageplay's final phase, the list goes on. The EX summons this little planet thing that shoots at the enemy before disappearing. You can also parry to do extra damage, but you won't get your EX card back for doing so. That would be a little too strong. After a weapon like the Crackshot though, the other two have a lot to live up to, and they just can't. Converge is the next weapon, and it's a solid B tier. It shoots 3 spread out electricity bolts at the enemy, and by holding down the lock button, it reduces the spread for more controlled shots. It's a decent weapon, and the best part about it is definitely the piercing it has. A very useful weapon for bosses that have extra enemies. I gotta say, this gun isn't very satisfying for me to use though. I just feel like I'm barely doing any damage half the time, and that's only because of how the bullets look. The EX shoots a really fast beam that can pierce through everything, which is really good, but I still feel like it does no damage. Is this weapon probably better than the pea shooter? Yeah, but does it feel as good when I use it? No, not to me. Still an objectively solid weapon. Last up, the Twist Up, and this is going straight to the D tier. This weapon is strange because it shoots in an upward fashion. It was really good against the second phase of Glumstone Giant, and then I thought to myself, that's it? Another lobber situation? It took a while for me to warm up to the lobber, so the Twist Up could be the same way. So I gave it some more chances, but it always felt so awkward to aim. It can work, but it never felt good to use. At some point, I thought it was better as a close range weapon, and I tried that, but now it seems to be a downgrade from the spread shot. Even the EX seemed to be a spread shot downgrade when I compared the two. It shoots a tornado that starts from where you are and goes in circles a few times. It's good. Not spread shot good, but it's good. I tried to give this thing a chance, but aside from a few bosses, it wasn't performing. With those out of the way, let's talk about those charms, and trust me, you can't go wrong with any of these. The Heart Ring first, and it's an easy S tier because it helps with getting those S ranks. The Heart Ring is what the extra heart and twin heart would be like if they didn't decrease your damage. This charm allows you to get an extra heart on your first parry, third parry, and 6th parry. Seeing as how you need at least 3 parries for an S rank, you're practically guaranteed 2 extra hearts for any boss. For bosses that have tons of things you can parry, it's great. I mean, it's hard to go wrong with something like this. And remember how I talked about the EX for the Crackshot? Well, good news. The EX that you can parry also counts as a parry for the Heart Ring, meaning you can have potentially 3 extra hearts for every boss if you play your cards right. This is a great combo and almost nothing beats it. Except the next charm. The Astral Cookie is an even easier S tier, simply the best charm in the game. I've already talked about Miss Chalice's moveset, but come on, she's simply just better than Cuphead in every way. Yes, including Cuphead with the Heart Ring and the Crackshot. She doesn't have the Smoke Dash, but that dodge roll might as well be the same thing. And there's really no downside to a double jump. The only thing I could think of as a downside is that the parry dash is arguably worse than the default parry, but even that's a stretch. Let's not forget, she has an extra heart and a busted super. I'm mostly talking about the heart shield because if you stock up your EXs constantly and parry everything in sight, you can get away with so much because you always have 2 extra hits you can take. 1 for the heart shield and 1 because you start with 4 hearts. You only need 3 for the S rank. And that's assuming you only use 1 super per fight, because I highly doubt you'll only use it once per fight. While I was getting S ranks for Isle 4, there were things I didn't got away with that I could never do with Cuphead. I was popping supers left and right, getting hit, about to reset, and then realizing I still had 3 hearts. Miss Chalice is simply just better. I'm sorry, but Cuphead has no way of keeping up. He got power crept in his own game. Or did he? The last charm on the list is the Broken Relic. Okay, now at first, I was lost on how this thing even worked. I put it on, and nothing happened. I beat a boss with it, and still, nothing happened. I was so lost, I had to look up what it did, and found out you can unlock the Cursed Relic by fighting the secret boss. There's these 3 guys who participated in a climbing competition, and by talking to them in the order of where they placed, there's some hints as to which gravestones to interact with down here. Once you've done that, it unlocks this secret boss, which shouldn't be too hard to deal with. It's a bit strange with what's going on in the back. That's kinda weird. This is certainly one hell of a dream. But beating that boss unlocks the Cursed Relic. Now hear me out here. this is still garbage. You start off with 1 heart, your weapon is randomized every time you stop shooting, and yeah, I can't think of a single good thing here. But as you beat more and more bosses in the world with it equipped, it begins to level up. The icon changes slightly, and slowly, the effects change as well. Eventually, after beating enough bosses, it will turn into the Divine Relic, an S tier charm on the same level as the Astral Cookie, if not better. The Divine Relic now starts you off at the regular amount of hearts, but still has the weird randomized weapon every time you stop shooting. That's completely fine though, because all the weapons aren't very hard to use unless you're getting twist up or something. Even if you get something you don't like, just stop shooting and shoot again for a different one. Now listen here, the Divine Relic grants you access to the Smoke Bomb, Heart Ring, an upgraded version of the Coffee Charm, and the Whetstone all in one. Let's put it this way, you now have access to 2 S tier charms, a solid B tier charm, which should really be A tier since this is an upgraded version, and I don't even care that I called the Whetstone F tier, this is just icing on the cake now. The randomized weapon thing might be a turnoff, but this is definitely the premier charm to use during plane sections when you only have 2 weapons to cycle through. With all this, I think we can safely say that Cuphead is able to keep up with Miss Chalice. I said before that the Astral Cookie is the best charm in the game, and for some, that might still be the case. But, depending on who you ask, Cuphead might be better with a Divine Relic. As for me, it depends on how I'm feeling. Now, I'm seriously regretting my decision to S-rank all the bosses in the base game before getting the DLC. Well, at least I can say to myself I did it the hard way. So that's it. That's Cuphead in its entirety. It's a really fun game, and the DLC is just as good as the base game. I've been singing the DLC's praises the entire time, but it was really a lot of fun and it gave me a good challenge. If you liked the base game of Cuphead, give the DLC a try. I promise it's worth it. The game's pretty old now, so discounts shouldn't be too hard to find. Besides, if you think 6 bosses isn't very much, go ahead and go for those S ranks. That'll for sure give you some extra playtime. In fact, there's an NPC right here who will give you a new skin for beating all 25 bosses in the game with Miss Chalice. It's just okay. I think one complaint that someone might have for this sort of game is the replay value, especially if they're not the kind of person willing to go back to get S ranks, which is totally understandable. But the game as is, this is nice. In fact, this is excellent, and I really enjoyed my time here. Okay, this video took way too long to make, and you know, I'm sorry, but thanks for watching. I hope you'll continue to keep watching because I'm on to the next series of games on the channel. Yes, series of games. I might have some random game thrown in there every once in a while, but we'll see. Once again, I'm sorry, but the production of this video took way longer than it should have, so next video, I'm recording my audio in the garage instead of my car. I'm not sure if I've shown this picture before, but this is unironically my garage setup. The audio might sound worse, but I can't leave people hanging for months at a time. I've seen the comments before, quality over quantity, but I took damn near 9 months for one video. I think I need some quantity. But until then, I still can't make an outro. Well, here's a random clip from when I was recording audio at night. Yo.
Hello?
Yo.
Are you in your car right now?
What happened?
Are you in your car right now?
Yeah. Why?
Who's behind you?
Well, I hear you. I'm not gonna get up. This stuff is uncomfortable. You see my hand? Yes or no?
Dude, what's up?
What's up? I can't really see you because I'm cramped down here, low-key.
That's crazy. That's your setup?
That's my setup.
Ah, hell.
What you mean, hell no?
That's terrible.
What you mean?
Okay, alright. Have fun.